Are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? You sort of have to quote Glinda when you're looking at this title. So this is Born Wicked by Jessica Spotswood, and it is a period piece, coming-of-age story about some witches in the late 18th century, so I'm thinking, the late 19th century rather, I'm thinking it would be around 1890 something. It's never specified, but they're reaching the turn of the century. And yeah, it concerns this lass here named Kate. She's 17, well, approaching 17 years old, and she has two younger sisters, Moira and Tess. Their mother was a witch. She passed away 4 years ago. They, all three of them, are witches, and they're coming into their magic more and more. They're struggling with being young women in this time period, their roles in society. They're struggling with an absent father, and they're struggling now with this lineage and responsibility that their mother seems to have left behind for them, and the notion of a prophecy is coming into play, and for all such things. Kate especially is struggling with the decisions that she has to make. They live in, I would say it's kind of an alternate past that's being depicted. I believe that we're in the United States. They just refer to it as New England, and they've got, I think the city that they refer to is like New London. Yeah, it is New London. So whether or not, but they make other references, and I'm thinking, are we actually in the US? So I'm trying to follow it, but I don't think it's ever actually specified. I feel very foolish for not knowing, but there you go. And in this society, the Brotherhood rules over. They're a religious order, very dictatorial and strict and God-fearing, and they abhor witchcraft, and they make a habit of accusing young women of witchcraft continually and shipping them off. They either go on, I think, slave ships or asylums. Some of them disappear entirely, and usually the accusations are unfounded and there's actually no witchcraft involved at all, but they just pick any girls or young women that are seemingly odd or, you know, out of step with society. And of course that's a great threat to Kate and her sisters, because they are legitimate witches, and they've seen a lot of girls persecuted and their lives ruined for no reason whatsoever, so they fear what's going to happen to them if they're ever found out. So they're struggling with their magic, and Kate especially is struggling with what she's going to do, because she feels the burden of looking after her sisters and protecting them. She also doesn't know what she wants with her life, really. She's deciding romantically where she's going to go, because she has these two options. Of course she does. There's the possibility of marrying a guy from her past who was her best friend. And then there's this other young lad named Finn, who's the new gardener. That's so, is it Madame Bovary? New gardener? No, Lady Chatterley's lover. But yeah, she's got a little triangle thing going on. And yeah, actually, one thing I will say that was interesting about the dynamic of the two guys that she wanted to choose, they kind of, the tables were turned a little bit with regards to your expectations of the character types they were, because you've got, I will forget what his name is, but anywho, the gardener is Finn, and the other dude, I'm just going to call him John. That's not his name, but I'm calling him John. And at first you think that maybe John's a bit rakish, you know, he's gone off, he's been in New London studying for a while, but he admits that he's been drinking and gambling and carousing about. And you think, like, that Finn's just the plain good guy underdog person, but then, you know, things kind of switch around, and so all of a sudden John is sort of more in the underdog position, and he's the best friend who you kind of feel bad for because he's not getting a look in maybe, and Finn is now the elusive sexy other guy. So yeah, things changed a little bit there in terms of expectations and stuff, so that was nice. I didn't really care for either of the boys very much, but still, it was nice that my, you know, expectations were being subverted a little bit, so I appreciated that. There were a lot of things that were reminiscent for me with the Gemma Doyle trilogy, especially the first novel, A Great and Terrible Beauty. I think that's always going to be the case when you're dealing with witchcraft in a period piece. It's just gonna, there will be similarities, because that's the name of the game with this kind of genre, but I mean, I really love the Gemma Doyle trilogy, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just felt like I could predict where a few things were going to go. Also, I don't want to give anything away here, but there is the slight element of lesbian love, so you know, girl-on-girl affection, which is totally fine by me. I'm more than happy to read about that. But I guess because also I knew that was present in the Gemma Doyle trilogy, so I sort of thought, are they going to just put that in here? Oh, look, they put it in here, and I could see it coming a mile away. So I'm more than happy for novels to deal with that. And you know, all relationships are interesting and worthy to me, but I just that was one thing of all the other similarities between the two series. That really struck me. I'm like, oh, really, again? But you know, I guess it helps also, I think, historically to link back to the fact that women who did engage in same-sex relationships were looked upon as evil, and that could often be a cause to be accused of witchcraft and such things. So, I mean, historically it's got some worth to be put in there as well, I guess, so it did make a bit of sense. And there's some side characters who are kind of interesting, and you get a few revelations. For the most part, it was fairly by the book, and I could, you know, sort of navigate where things were going to go. But it was still enjoyable enough to read about. And I guess I like this time period. I like exploring the notion of, or lack of, women's rights in that era, especially for young women and them coming into their own and such. I think the hierarchy of power in this community, this society, was interesting, and the fact that it's playing against this backdrop of magic and the threat that it's imposing for the girls. So, and also the sister dynamics were nice. I quite liked the interactions between Kate and Moira and Tess. Tess I like especially. She's 12 years old, and I think she was actually my favourite character. I had quite an affection for her, and she's a very powerful witch, and she's a very clever, bright little girl, and yeah, I liked her a lot. So I mean, I'll probably continue with the series just to see where it goes, but I do highly recommend it if you enjoy period novels, and if you like supernatural witchcraft stories, then I think you will I think you will fancy the book. I know lots of people love the cover, so that's probably going to be a draw card. So yeah, I'll give it 3.5 stars out of 5 for Born Wicked by Jessica Spotswood.